Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FDP by Android Authority, Android Authority's podcast, now called the FDP. We do some explanation as to why we changed the name, but mainly it was because we knew you guys liked that hashtag, and we wanted to keep it as well. But we also read our YouTube comments, so we will respond to some of those. Let's just put it this way. It is not what you think it is for those of you who have been commenting, particular ones on our YouTube channel about what FDP stands for. Nonetheless, we have a spirited conversation about that and get right into Android M, the supposed release that's going to come out at Google I/O this year, which is just around the corner. And yours truly, Joshua Vergara, will be heading over to that show to bring you all the best from that event. I'm really excited about it, but we also talk about what we want to see in Android M and even pontificate as to what M might stand for. And we get a lot of really great suggestions from the crew. We actually have a full 5-panel show this time around, as Nirav was able to join us on this particular show, and Andrew Grush, because he has a kid who woke up in the beginning of the day, because we did this early on a Thursday, if I remember correctly. He was able to duck out just a little bit early, so we were still able to have a full panel for this episode. Episode number 16, where we also talk a little bit about the LG G4, which I had just put out the review for, so I hope you guys all watched that. Joe Hindi and Jonathan Feist join us as well, as our usual panel is, so we all just talk about those things here. I did want to get a couple of announcements out of the way. We did finally get our SoundCloud account up and running, so make sure you head over to the description below if you're in the YouTube description, and also head over to the full post for the FDP at androidauthority.com so you can see and find the link to the SoundCloud account for us. So for those of you who've been wanting SoundCloud, you now got it. After that, we're coming up on a lot of different events in the next couple of weeks, so we might have some special shows in store for you guys. But nonetheless, that should pretty much do it for this intro. Keep it tuned here, and remember, if you're on the YouTube channel, you can always go to iTunes, to SoundCloud now, to Stitcher, or to Pocket Cast, any of the podcast programs that are out there, and you'll be able to listen to the FDP in that particular fashion. One of the best ways of listening to the Android Authority podcast. So, without any further ado, here is number 16, episode number 16, I should say, of the FDP, Android M and LG G4. Hope you guys enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Son of a Bitch podcast.
Yes, we changed it up, and
we read our YouTube comments.
Yes, we do. Okay, I guess that's what we're going to start off with, because obviously we're not naming it that because of what it means in particular languages. And so yes, we are the FDP now, and I was actually told by one of our bosses, good old Derek over there. He's like, I don't think we need to tell them that P stands for podcast. I think it's kind of implied already. Just call it the FDP, because if you look at our listing on Pocket Cast and everywhere else, I've changed it up already. It'll say Android Authority Podcast, but then the title of the podcast is FDP number whatever, and then the title, and then the actual subtitle. So technically we're the Android Authority podcast, but we just kind of like the term FDP, and we thought we would do we will put like a HTC of sorts and just be like, oh, it's the FDP. What does it stand for? Do you guys have any what does FDP stand for you guys?
You don't want to know. You don't want to know all of the ridiculous, horrible, and typically vulgar things that I have associated with F, and then especially with DP. Oh man! All right. I made my one bad joke for the day. You guys can talk now.
I don't think we really thought of too much when we did it. It's just that I at least I noticed, and I'm sure Grushy did too, that on social media, because Grushy, you're more on Google Plus than Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I noticed on Twitter that hashtag FDP was really gaining traction. Everyone kind of liked that, it's distinctive.
Well, it just has a nice ring to it. I mean, who cares what it stands for?
Yeah, right? And that's the whole reason why we said word P stands for podcast. For the only time I've ever really said that was last week's show, which was... did you guys listen to last week's show, by the way?
The first 20 minutes or so, but I've had an insanely busy week, so I haven't really been listening to much of anything. I watched most of it.
I think I cut out somewhere in the middle, because...
Yeah, that was
kids and stuff, but
I love it when we go to events and I get to have people on. Nirav was supposed to be a guest on the show, back when we went to China together, and then all of a sudden Nirav is here and he's with us in the Android Authority, so it doesn't even really.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we were all just sort of like in that hotel lobby, just sort of drinking up a bit, and then I remember you like nudged me. You're all like, "What about that podcast, man?" And I was like, "We're not really recording."
I'm a bit drunk.
But yeah, I love it when we get guests for these events, and obviously last week was the LGG4 launch. I had Flo from Greenbot, Dom Esposito, and Michael Fisher on. That was a hell of a show. I put the clips at the beginning of the YouTube version. We were on a boat, and we got off the rails so much more than I think any of us ever have, like our usual panel here on the show. But that was the only time I've ever really said P stands for podcast, and then, well, we saw the YouTube comments, and then it just got a little bit crazy. But yeah, we're back in our respective homes and studios. It's time to talk. We had our poll, and I'll let Grushy sort of kind of talk about our poll and see. It was like an overwhelming response, right, dude?
Yeah, basically, like 58% of everyone wanted to talk about Android M. So, even though we know nothing about it, but speculation is good.
Of course. Well, let's start with this. Let's keep it light for this beginning part, and just so you listeners know and viewers on the YouTube version, we will talk about the LGG4 a little bit later. Nirav and I are the only ones who have LGG4, so we'll be able to do that. And hopefully you guys have been able to see the review that I put out yesterday already, and hope you guys enjoyed that. But here's my first question, keeping it kind of light. I'll start with Feisty. What do you think M is going to stand for?
Oh, you had to start with that one, hey? I'm going to go off the beaten path. Let's go with marmalade.
Marmalade? That's the first I've heard of that one. Marmalade.
Well, it's not exactly a candy, but it's sweet and it's unique. So hey, here's hoping. I'm not putting any money on that, but here's hoping. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How about Joe?
I don't know what I really, really, really want it to be called Macarena.
Macarena.
Is that even
Android...
is that a sweet?
No, it's a dance move. Come on.
Exactly.
No,
I know that.
You were alive in the 90s, right?
No, I do know that. The Macarena was my jam when I was growing up, but I just don't know if that would stick.
It wouldn't. That's a pipe dream that I have, because then, on stock versions of Android, when you turn it on, the boot screen can come on and you can hear, "Hey, Macarena," and then it would boot to the home screen. And I think that would be not only awesome, but hilarious, and that band, whoever did that song originally, would get some royalties for the first time in like 15 years.
And then collectively we're going to have so many broken phones across the world because I never restart my phone because I don't want to hear that freaking sound. Nirav, how about you, man?
I don't know. Okay, on a serious note, I think probably something like Marshmallow, but I would love Android McFlurry.
That would be awesome. Yes, I love it.
And then when you boot up, or when you press the build number God knows how many times, it comes up with a picture of McFlurry. How cool would that be, man?
Now here is the question: is it an M&M McFlurry, or is it the obviously superior Oreo McFlurry?
Oh, I was just about to say.
Oh man.
Better question: if you take your Nexus device into McDonald's, do you get a free McFlurry?
Dude, that would be
Feisty,
a great.
You've hit the mark,
That'd be a great promotion, wouldn't it?
Did you get a free Kit Kat when you had Kit Kat? No.
But you got a nice Easter egg when you opened up your Kit Kat and there was an Android robot there. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, those didn't get sold around here. I never got to see one of those in person.
Those were kind of cool. Like, you opened it up and they missed an opportunity. They should have been handing out green tea Kit Kats, so it was green. But yeah, that was the thing. How about you, Grushy? What do you think M is going to stand for?
I don't know, mackerel?
Mackerel?
Worst version of Android ever.
No, I'd say marshmallow is probably the most likely, but if they could go M&M, but that would sound kind of weird after. Well, I don't know.
They should keep up those company centric sponsorships. I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it doesn't roll off the tongue to me.
I guess
M&M.
so. I mean, we had.
I have M&M.
I agree. Marshmallow probably will be it, but really they.
Who knows though? I mean, they don't always go for obvious ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
We thought, key lime pie, and then all of a sudden it became Kit Kat. Kat, and then
The lollipop was pretty obvious, I think.
I really think it's gonna be milkshake. To be honest,
Milkshake? I
Yeah.
could see that.
Ooh,
Yeah,
milkshake.
I really think it's gonna be milkshake. But the one that came to me, and actually it was funny when Joe saying Macarena made me think of this. You know what? Like, given Mountain View, San Francisco, all these like yuppie hipster people up in San Francisco, I think it would be macaroon.
Macaroon?
Yeah, those little
It could be.
those little wannabe hamburger things. Like,
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
I think you're
maybe.
right there in terms of
Mince
macaroon
pie.
could be the one.
And
is
the
funny.
statue on the lawns at Google would just be a big pile of chocolate brown. Macaron mixed cookie. I was trying to say cookie. That's the words. Yeah.
chocolate brown, love it.
Big pile of chocolate brown in the lawn. Yeah, we're all
Totally-
thinking of chocolate, obviously.
Total tangent, by the way. Like, I saw this. I don't know if anyone here watches At Midnight on Comedy Central, but there's that emoji that looks like poop. This is total tangent. I'm sorry, guys, but there's that emoji that looks like poop, and the thing is, I found out that's not poop. That's supposed to be ice cream. Who thought of that? Like, who said that was fine? Like,
Is that the one that's got a face on it and like little smelly lines coming off?
yeah,
the
that's
top?
supposed to be ice cream somehow. Then
How
those.
How the hell is that ice cream?
Yeah, really,
That's that looks like a steaming pile of poop.
Sounds like somebody just trying to save face. Oh yeah, it's ice cream.
Yeah, right. It's GIF, not GIF. And then I don't know. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Android M. Speaking of poop, no, I'm just kidding.
I would totally eat Android-shaped marshmallows. Just saying.
Oh, I thought that was going a totally different way. We're loyalists here at Android Authority. Oh my god. Agreed. Oh man, imagine like a Lucky Charms with little androids in it.
Totally.
All right, so Android M. Now, I just did a search right before this podcast just to see, what articles do we have on Android Authority about Android M anyway? And we have two. One of them is Android M revealed on the schedule, and then the next one, Android M reportedly to be, or supposedly going to be released at Google I/O. And that's it. That's the first time I've ever searched for something on Android Authority, and there was an end to the page. Given that we really don't know much about Android M, which is a travesty because Google I/O is right around the corner, and we're still kind of okay. This was one of the poll options, but I suppose this still fits. We're right around the corner from Google I/O, and if Android M is actually going to be announced there, we're still in the middle of Android L release cycle, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, they did the
we
exact
just
same
finally
thing.
got 5.1 on the Nexus 9.
Hey, guys, don't forget that this is exactly what happened last year also when they announced Android L and KitKat only had 10% of the market share. Like, this is typical behavior from the Googles. So, I mean, yeah, it's right in the middle of the release cycle, and this is... I've complained about it for weeks now, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I mean, it's the yearly release cycle. I think they're trying to get back into it.
Well, but typically there's been a lesser version in the summer, and then the big one later. And so, are they just shifting to once a year having release?
I don't know.
Because
maybe
really, you can't really count 5.1. I mean, yeah, it's 5.1, but can you really count it as?
Well, you can't.
I don't.
You can't make an
know?
announcement at I/O about 5.1. Not necessarily.
Well, yeah, it's not. Well, I mean, it didn't bring in. I mean, even if they had waited for all the bug fixes in 5.1, it wouldn't have been special enough to make a big announcement about.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even compared to the Jelly Bean point, 0.2, 0.3, there's less difference, And so, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to move to a once a year.
Yeah, probably so.
And of course, we don't know how long it'll be before they actually I highly doubt they're releasing M, this summer. They're going to probably do a developer preview, and who knows how long they'll wait. I mean, I would imagine not until the next Nexuses at the end of the year.
Yep.
And so that basically means it's been a year since, the last update. Because like I said, I don't really count 5.1. 5.1's not an update. It's just fixing things that should have been there from day one. You know?
Right. And then maybe a few additions to the auxiliary Android platforms like Wear. And then, Android M is supposedly supposed to have some Android Auto functionality in there that will tap into your actual navigation system, so you don't necessarily have to have like an Android Auto like installation in your car. Speaking of Android Auto, in about 2.5 hours, I'm finally getting a Android Auto equipped Hyundai. After that debacle from last time, it was like, wait, this car doesn't have Android Auto? They're like, what's that?
That's always a good sign. That is a great sign. You know that, right? Like, what the hell is Android Auto? What?
Well, the guys who sent the car and who are sending it today are a third party, so I give them the benefit of the doubt in that case. And then our contacts over at Hyundai were like, sorry about that. Like we have demos available, but we're not going to be able to send them out. And it only took them a month to bring me a car that actually had it. So for the next 10 days, I'm going to be using this car, like really getting to know it, putting up videos and stuff. But yeah, Android M coming out at I/O. One thing I have to comment on, and of course, I'm the only one I think in this group that's been to I/O, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
I love I/O, but it's been shrinking. Like the first year that I went was 2 years ago, and it had like there was like a huge store on the bottom floor of the Moscone Center. It went on for 3 days. Last year it was 3 days with no store. This year it's 2 days, and there's like. I'm not excited about I/O for the announcements anymore, because the first time I went, it was like, oh, here's Google Play Music, and that was amazing. You could try it out right, like as they were announcing it, everyone was installing it on their phones. Last year we had some Android Wear stuff, and we had all those announcements. I don't know what to expect for this year's I/O, and if Android M is the only thing, I'm actually not quite that excited about it, to be honest.
I don't know. I think there'll be some surprises, you know?
Hopefully.
And I mean, Android M, I think it's going to be interesting because I think they've already kind of hinted if you look at the schedule. Yeah, I'd say Auto's going to be a big part of Android M. And then just Workplace. They have some Workplace stuff. One thing, yeah, we have an article on it, but it didn't say Android M. One thing that probably is related to Android M, though, is that Google, in their schedule, has hinted about new voice actions that are coming. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that coincides with M. And basically, they're going to be bringing the ability. Well, here's what they say in the schedule. Mobile hardware has adopted the touchscreen as the primary mode of input, and with 1 billion active Android users, there's no signs of this slowing down. What if you could provide users with a new method of access to your apps with little to no development overhead? In this talk, we will discuss ways to give anyone access to their Android device through voice alone. So we may be seeing more and more apps that can be controlled through voice, like at a more granular, level, the deeper level, basically.
Well, okay.
And so that could be cool, and that would make sense for Android Auto,
I suppose so, and it would make sense for Android Auto, but even then, okay, and this will segue me into some Android Auto talk, but I just wanted to ask, speaking of voice actions, Nirav, do you use voice actions on your Android phones fairly often?
I used to, but I don't. To be honest, I found, I don't know why, but I think it's just my British accent. Google doesn't really like trying to transcribe what I actually say.
It's racist, is what you're saying.
I never said anything like that. I just said it doesn't like us Brits. To be fair, it has like 5,000 different accents it needs to understand. Yeah. But I'm from London, like proper Englishman, so... Oops, that's a different conversation.
That might actually be closer to racist. From London, we're proper English.
I'm English. I can say that. It's okay. Don't worry. Whoops.
It's like that thing where Americans can say that Southerners are stupid. Like, yeah. Rednecks are
sure there's going to be...
It's this thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sure there's going to be comments right now based on exactly what I said about Englishmen, because it's always a topic that grains anyone who's not from London. And people who are from London. But yeah, I think sometimes I use Google now, occasionally to search, and occasionally use voice input, but I've never really found a need for anything else. Yet, if I think back to going slight off topic, but going back a few years to when S-Voice first came out, I think it was the S3 or maybe the S4.
I think it was S3? 4.
I used to use it to open apps all the time because I couldn't be bothered to find them in an app drawer. Because there was far too much bloatware and it was just stuffed in some corner somewhere. But I don't know, I've never really found a need. I've not found voice functions that are useful. But I would love to be able to kind of just go off my watch. Like my ideal for something like Android M and voice actions would be from my Android Wear watch go, okay Google, on my phone, launch WhatsApp, as an example. So I don't even need to pick up my phone. And then from there, I can do another thing. Okay, Google, new voice, like new WhatsApp chat with X, Y, and Z, or use Hangouts because it's Google service or something like that. That's the only way that voice can be really kind of like, instead of having to physically touch your phone, ideal if you're obviously your phone, and like you touched on with Android Auto, it'd be perfect if your phone's on your dashboard or something. Just being able to open an app, start a new chat, type a message, and send it without having to touch your phone. But not just with Google apps, but once developers add their support, any apps.
Well, I think that's a glaring hole with I guess what we're saying now is Google Now is you can't necessarily just say launch this and just assume that every app will open based on that command. I think there's like a glaring hole there where if you were to install an app from the Play Store that isn't necessarily known or has like, let's say, less than 10,000 downloads, you just can't say open, like in my case, like open iGluco, and that's my blood sugar meter app. It won't open, I'm sure of it, because it's listed with a bunch of different names on the freaking Play Store. Like that's the consolidation, I think, is what is lacking in terms of voice actions is the thing. And the only way that Google can make them useful is to keep them very vague. Which is why Feisty, you have a Chromebook. It wasn't voice action a key part of the Chromebook experience?
Is it really?
I thought it was, because I remember I remember looking at Chromebooks at Google I/O, and it kept saying, like, you know, if you were in Chrome or in any which particular application, it could say like, okay, at this point you can say Google, okay, Google, and it would do it. Like they said that Chrome had the built-in voice actions and it was a key part of Chromebook. I'm assuming you don't use voice actions on your Chromebook, huh?
That is correct. You're right. They are there. I've disabled them.
We're making the case that there's one thing that Android M might be great for is something we'll never use, which is my point. Like, where could they go from here? And we had a very spirited rant from Joe a couple weeks ago about like the infrastructure of Android and how that needs to be changed, for obviously. But did I cut you off there, Feisty? What were you gonna say?
I was going to jump back in, give my opinion on the Android side of things, but you keep going. Come back to me.
Well, that was what I was going to sort of segue into, was like, what do you want to see in, let's say, Android Macaroon or Android Milkshake or Android Macarena?
Yeah!
What would you like to see? And I could double back over to you, Feisty. Like, do you have anything in mind that you would really want to see?
Let's stick with the voice stuff for a moment here. There is already a lot of voice-activated stuff in Android. Now, I'm not sure if they're talking about increasing the functionality through Google Now or throughout the operating system.
I think
now, what
about
I use a lot of is
system.
Tasker. I mean, if you've been following my Thursday posts, everybody knows this. I use Tasker a lot. I've got a button on my, one of the home screens. I tap it. Tasker comes up. I talk to Tasker through an Android voice input, and then Tasker does a whole bunch of things for me. I barely use Google Now, but I'm still using that voice. So I guess it depends on how they're going to implement this, and if they're going to route everything through Google Now, then I don't want to use the word monopoly and bottleneck, but I see the fears on that. Otherwise, Android M... Sorry, go on, Raf.
No, go on, Feisty, carry on.
I was going to say, Android M in general, I need to say, Google, stop it. Just stop. Let's look back a year or 2 years ago. When we looked at mobile operating systems, the power of these devices was in the applications. And now Android itself is doing everything. And there's going to be some confusion on the word, but it feels to me bloated. It's doing way too much. It's trying to handle too many things. It can't offer the same sort of options that a dedicated app might. I mean, sure, it's great that the operating system could do it all and look after your entire phone, but there's 1 million plus apps out there, and many of them are, being shut down or deprecated because Android does the stuff now, but it doesn't do it quite as well in a lot of cases. So,
can you give us like a specific example there? Like, I'm curious.
Flashlight applications. That's a big one that people talk about. I mean, that was big stuff for a lot of people, and they're dead now. If you've got Lollipop installed, it's right there in your quick settings.
You could actually make the argument that it's less convenient there because like because I've been using it on. I actually went back and got a flashlight widget because it's actually faster for me to turn on my screen, unlock the phone, and tap the widget than it is for me to like unlock the phone, reach all the way to the top, drop the notification thing, drop it a second time to get to the flashlight, and then finally turn on the flashlight. Like
you make my point exactly, and I agree with you completely.
That is exact. Yeah, I was gonna say almost the exact same thing when it came around to my turn, but yeah, no, like two steps forward, 2 steps backward. You know, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, the OS is doing it, but there are apps out there that are now not going to get installed because why? It's there in the OS. So I say strip most of the stuff out of it. Keep Android clean, work with better integration, look at like the exposed modules and easier support with them without root. And I think that's the way that things should go. Is that what's coming? I doubt it, but I mean the permissions thing coming up, if that becomes real, where Google's going to let us choose to grant or deny permissions on a per permission basis, I think that's awesome. But again, that's something the root world has been doing for a while. So
yeah, I was just about to say, yeah. Okay.
Feisty.
Oh,
sorry.
Go for it, guys. I was actually going to pop it over to you, Narav.
Oh, perfect. Just on going back to your topic, like what you mentioned about Google Now, that's pretty much what I was going to say. I think Android M is going to be like Lollipop, where obviously everyone knows that Android is open source. It's the AOSP, and then it's the Google services that kind of add the Play Store, etc., onto it. I think that the likes of Cyanogen and others, and like their closer relationship, the fact they're getting a lot of funding because people don't want to rely on Google services, actually has Google a little bit worried. So where Google is driving kind of any innovation in Android, it's now going to try and bottleneck it all through its own app to kind of force people to use it. But going back, I think probably agree with Feisty that actually there is a time when there's too much Google, too much reliance on that, because we all know that no matter what you do, it's going to have your data on there. And let's be frank, it already has so much data about you anyway. Do you really want to start routing all your voice actions to it? So essentially, it knows everything you've done on your phone more than you may not know already, kind of thing. I think if it was to like having voice functionality that didn't rely on Google Now would be brilliant. But I personally agree with Feisty that we're going to see anything we see going forward that's a Google-led innovation is going to be done through Google Now. It won't be Android at the core. Because if it's Android at the core, as part of AOSP example, then they're giving that functionality to other people who may not necessarily install like Google suite of applications. And that's obviously a problem for them because they don't get the data and make shitloads of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I can't stop thinking about that point you made that there's so much of our data that's already in Google's camp. Like there's so much that's already there, and for a company that's like so huge, you're right. There could be something as too much Google, and I think a lot of people have already voiced that opinion out. Isn't it true, though, that Google's really been pulling the reins on Android recently? I mean, look at all of these. We have now 3 flagship phones that have been released this year, and nearly all of them have this kind of, I don't know, they feel like they're not putting too much of themselves into the phones as much as before. Like we used to complain about it with TouchWiz, with Samsung over the last year or two and all that. But I feel like every company now has like, even LG was saying they have this really close relationship with Google and they work really closely with them. And now most of the apps that are defaulted on the G4 are like Chrome and Drive and all that stuff. So yeah, Google is kind of pulling the reins. Grushy, how about you, man? How do you feel about Android M? What do you want to see in this upcoming version? Hopefully,
and that it doesn't have millions and millions of bugs that make it worse.
That's why I'm leaving. Version. That's why I'm leaving Joe for last because I know we're in for a good one.
That's probably the biggest thing, but I'd like to see a little more movement between Chrome and more merging between Chrome and Android. I think that could be interesting. I think that they're already moving in that direction. So I'd like to see more Android apps come to Chromebooks, and I don't think they're ever going to merge completely, but I could see them coming closer together.
Yeah.
The voice actions thing, I agree. I probably wouldn't use it a whole lot, but I could see how it could be useful for when you're in a vehicle, obviously.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go with that in a vehicle. Like, so that Hyundai that I had almost a month ago at this point, I obviously there was no Android Auto in there, but its integration was already really good with my smartphone. You just connect it via Bluetooth. It auto connects every time you get into your car, and the microphone is placed perfectly right above you, so all voice actions are coming loud and clear and everything like that. The video I'm going to make next week, or one of the two at least, is the case that maybe Android Auto, as cool as it might be and as nice as it is to integrate everything from your smartphone to your car, maybe it's a little unnecessary. And because if we already have good navigation systems like Audi's Navigation Plus or BMW's or Hyundai's Blue Link in that case, then, is it more of a luxury rather than necessary? And Google really has to make the case that it's completely necessary. On the other hand, having a car mount and putting your phone there and then using voice actions using your phone kind of works pretty well already. That's what I've been noticing recently. So if the voice actions work great on the phone and you're in your car and it's able to pick up your voice and you just have the car mount right there so the screen is right in your face while you're driving, I'm all for it. I do use Google Voice. I use Google Voice, but I do use Google Now voice actions fairly often. But never that. I still think the whole "Okay Google Now" thing is dumb. Google, blah blah blah. It's not even that hard to just hit that microphone icon right next to the widget.
You can change the hot word too. Like I know people who've changed it to okay blah blah blah. Okay Jarvis, I think is a popular one that people do a lot.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean that was something somewhat popularized by
for a
Motorola.
period in early 2014. I said hey douchebag, and it hey douchebag, search for stuff.
Hey FDP. I'm sorry, I didn't want. All right, so all of us, let's grab our popcorn. Let's sit back. Joe,
it's a lot of pressure now, man.
Well, okay, just joking around there. What do you want to see in Android M?
Feisty had probably the best point out of everybody so far. Is that Android has always been the strongest suit has been applications. There's 1.3 or 1.4 million of them right now. Games and apps and tools and things that do all kinds of other things. And I think it would behoove Google to go back to promoting that a little more. Just it's almost exactly what Feisty said. But the biggest thing that I hope that they do eventually in any version of Android is to give the users more control of their devices without requiring root access. And it's not just stuff like being able to change the battery icon or having root access or backing up your apps with Titanium Backup, but it's other stuff too. Like something I've been complaining about a lot recently is Google location services. I know what it is, but I don't know why it's always running. Like, it's been running since I rebooted my phone last night. It's 10 and a half hours. Facebook is another application that's really, really, really bad at this. I turned off sync. I turned off everything. Literally everything in the settings says off or not active. But Facebook has a process running on my phone right now that's used the mobile radio for 20 minutes and has sucked down 9% of my battery life. What the hell is Facebook doing? And how come I can't find out that information?
I can tell you what it's doing.
Tell me, baby girl, because I need to know.
Okay, no, this is not a scientific answer by any means, but you guys ever notice that Facebook does that weird thing where it tells you if one of your friends is nearby? That's what it's constantly trying to do, and it's okay. A, it's creepy, but B, you're right. Having that location service on at all times, it does drain the battery life a bit, and it is kind of annoying.
No. It drains the battery life a whole shit ton. I think with my screen off, between Google Play services and Facebook, it's 45% of my battery.
What?
So, I think
45% of the drainage today since I unplugged.
I've noticed the same, Joe. I mean, on the last 3 weeks with the Essex, I think probably out of about 20 days, in my top 3, Facebook, at the end of the day, maybe 10 days out of 20, it's been there, and the other days it's in the top 5. And I might open it once in that entire day, but it's for 4 days, it was the biggest drain until I turned location off system wide.
And that's the thing.
And then it started being better.
That's the thing. I don't want to do that all the time. Like, I don't want to have to walk around like micro. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to have to walk around and micromanage my connections. If I turn location off in Facebook, the freaking app shouldn't have it. Facebook should look at my device and go, hey, Spain, whatever. And I don't appreciate that. Like, I have to like turn it off in the system, and then I have to turn it off in the application, and then at some point, even if I turn both of those off, it's still somehow like opening itself up. Like, if I'm not using the application, it shouldn't be used at all unless I tell it to sync in the background. And this is a problem that it's been getting progressively worse in Android, because like back in like Gingerbread, there were processes that were in the background, but it wasn't like I'm going to look this up just so I can say it, but I think I have 6 or 7 Google Play services tasks open right now, and I don't know what they're for. Like, I don't even have that many apps that track my location. So I don't know what it's doing. I never know what it's doing. And that's what if I had to ask Google, pray to Google, sit on Google's lap and ask for something for Christmas, it would be, allow us to kind of lasso in these things and stop them entirely. Because it's getting ridiculous at this point. And
see, Joe, what's really going on is that I'm tracking you and I'm watching you from the camera. I'm your secret stalker
to make sure you're not cute at the fruit or whatever that.
Yep.
Damn it, Chase.
And so that's what's really going on. Is I'm just following you around, seeing what you're doing.
All right, yeah.
I'm sorry that I'm putting so much strain on the battery, though.
Yeah, 2 processes and 7 services. 7 services. And that's just it's frustrating. It's frustrating and stupid, because if these things didn't exist, if Google Play if Google Play services weren't so shrouded in mystery, and I could see what's causing all of this drain, I would take steps to fix it. I would maybe start browsing Facebook from its mobile page instead of having the application, or petition Facebook to put in settings so I could turn that crap off. But right now, like, Google Play services kind of like hides all of the bad stuff that other applications are doing, and I really, really want that to end. Like, I don't think that should be a thing that exists anymore.
On iOS, I mean, just on location alone, on iOS you can see the little indicator in the navigation bar when location's been activated, and then you can go into settings and it tells you exactly which apps are using your location at that time. I can't believe Android doesn't have that. Because it will tell you, like, occasionally my location will be on, and I've seen the little indicator going, oh look, location set by GPS. But I can't see at that moment exactly which app has asked it to check that location. Yet iOS does. And I'm not trying to compare them, but having used an iPhone for the last few days just to do some testing on something, I've noticed that actually it's a lot easier to find out there what's using the location and just turn the off switch.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it stops it.
Exactly. And you look at the last couple of years, the last couple of releases, you have people saying like, "Oh, you have more, control than ever before." No, you don't. You have, if anything, whose telephone is that?
Is that a landline?
It is a
Sounds like
landline.
it.
I'm sorry.
People have landlines still?
Who has a landline?
Damn, that means I can't ask you to put it on vibrate.
Is it 1950s in your house?
Oh, give him a break.
He's got a
I'm at a
rotary
friend's
phone.
house at the moment, and
One of his phones time travels.
Hashtag 1990.
Feisty, is it one of those those little phones that you can't even press buttons, you have to dial it around and round?
Yeah, the rotary phones. Yeah,
Rotary phone?
Yeah.
That's the one.
I can't even make that sound. Oh man, yeah. Feisty's over there. He's got like a TARDIS right next to him or something.
Okay, you guys
imagine,
keep chatting. I'm gonna make this phone leave the room. I'll be right back.
25 seconds
Well,
later, we hear a
at least
big
it's
giant
cordless.
crash and a window shatter. Feisty's throwing the damn thing out the window. You hear it, "Bug off!" Like,
You don't even run Android.
don't even
All right.
run iOS. All right, sorry, but
Yeah, where were you,
Like,
Joe?
outside of the complaints, what do I want? I don't even know what I want in Android M, because like it feels like it's too soon to talk about it. You know, it's
Yeah.
I don't
like,
think so, because we're so close to IO at this point, man. Like, my
on,
hotel's
We just don't
booked.
know
you know?
anything, really.
I know it's not the proximity to the event. It's the idea that they're not going to, you know, I figured that they would, you know, this is a huge, like, it's a huge change. Like, and the last time they did such a huge change, it was going from ice cream sandwich and honeycomb to jelly bean. And they took a couple of years to refine that. And, you know, given how Lollipop started out, one would think that they would want to refine that a little bit more before moving on to the next one. So, I don't know, just in my mind, I didn't have it built up that we were going to get Android M at Google I.O. this year. So
I agree with you
It's
completely.
kind of like that, it feels like that day right before you get a cold, and you don't know if you have like a cold or the flu, or if there's something that you ate, or if it's just really hot outside, and you're like, you know, do I have a fever, or is it just warm out here?
That's
you know,
gushy right now.
Yeah, well, though I do have a cold, and I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Yeah, you know,
to-
so you're like, you know, you don't exactly know what medicine to take. You're like, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do. Should I call off of work tomorrow?
just take them all, combine them, you'll be fine.
Yeah, good job there.
That's my philosophy.
Good job over there, liver failure. Jeez.
Who needs one of
You know,
those?
it feels kind of like that, where it's like I don't know what I want because, you know, the stuff that I have now is just so incomplete that I kind of wanted to wait and see what a completed Lollipop felt like.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a legit point. Were any of us expecting M? I was expecting 5.2.
Yeah, like a 5.2
I was-
Lollipop or something, you know?
Yeah, I wasn't.
I was expecting it a year before Android M. I thought, yeah, it was going to take at least a couple of years.
I agree.
And I think kind of...
Right.
You could be right that Lollipop started off so badly, and
Well,
Joe will leave that
it's-
the last half an hour to you.
Yeah, I
It's not necessarily that it started off badly. It's that it was such a huge change. I mean, you guys remember I.O. last year? I mean, that blew everyone's freaking mind. Material design and Google
Yep.
Fit and Android Auto and more Android Wear and like it was just like, and now and an Android M this year. What are they gonna do? Like, what could they possibly do that it was so big that it deserves a name change, especially after all of the ridiculous stuff that they announced last year that still just barely exists this year? Like, Android Wear is coming along nicely, but I mean, Josh is getting a demo unit for Android Auto that's due out what, circa 2017? Like, you know, and it's just half of the stuff that they announced last year isn't even out yet. So
Well, they've created these other ecosystems that honestly are not ubiquitous, and it just feels odd that they would. It just kind of feels odd that they would focus so hard on stuff that pretty much everyone in that room at Google I/O, they need to put their own foot in the door to have it. You know, and that's the part that kind of gets me, is that Android Auto is not really in every single car. It won't be. And even then, most people are okay with their cars, and they're not going to even touch Android Auto until, like you said, 2017 probably. Same thing with Android Wear. You have to actually buy into this particular ecosystem. That's why it's odd, you know. Like, I'm not gonna go out on a limb and say that, you know, Android has reached its peak or anything like that. So what else could they do? Because obviously they have Auto and Wear, but those I shudder to think that that's even enough to warrant a big name change Android. That's how I feel about it, and that's why I'm not too excited about I/O. I don't really know what's going to come out.
You know, to me, it almost feels like they're pulling a Microsoft. That Lollipop had some reception issues, just like Windows 8 did. So now they're just pulling a change, so that way they can sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
That's almost what it feels like to me.
Yeah, exactly. That is like the perfect analogy for exactly how I feel. It's like it almost seems like they're trying to just get away from Lollipop as soon as humanly possible.
Well, that's basically with Windows 10. I mean, other than they bring back a start menu and stuff, it's still. I've been using the the test version. It's still basically Windows 8, and I'm feeling M will be the same thing. It'll be basically the same thing as Lollipop, but they'll fix a few things that are complaint points, like bugs and maybe things like we'll have a real silent mode again, and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden it'll be a big deal. It'll be awesome, because that's what's going to happen with Windows 10 is they're going to make it seem like it's a big deal because we jumped from 8 to 10, we've done a bunch, and I think that's what I feel like they're doing here with them. It's like, oh, look how much we've accomplished. It's like,
there's just going to be
This
fewer
could have been-
bugs and minor
because
changes.
really, not to get into the whole Microsoft side of things, but I feel like using Windows 10, I'm probably the only one who's used the test version. But
I have.
I
used
I
Windows
have
10
you?
it's
Okay,
installed
to
on my
me, it
laptop.
doesn't feel that different than Windows 8, other than it has a start menu.
It doesn't
and so,
feel any different from Windows 7 either.
well, yeah, none of them do. Yeah, they could all still be. We could be at like Windows 7.5, it'd be fine. You know, it's all basically feels the same. And I feel like, yeah, just to me, I mean, maybe they'll do something big and we're just talking out of our asses, and
well, they did do
M will be awesome. You know, maybe M will be the most amazing thing ever, and we'll all be like, well, yeah, we were totally off base. But to me, it just seems
I
like
think it's going to be BlackBerry meets Windows and a bit of iOS, and they're just going to say that Android is dead. And what we've done is we've just teamed up with BlackBerry, and that's the future of mobile platforms. And we're going back to like BlackBerry OS 4.
Oh my goodness.
Android murdered. Yes.
Yeah, Android murdered.
That's it.
The murder mystery.
You heard
of
it here
the
first, folks.
Dude, you could make a blockbuster movie out of that, man. Jeez. You could like literally like watch like people get angry, like just look outside, just see like steam trails coming up out of the streets. Like, they're doing what? BlackBerry? No!
Well, speaking of, I'm just going to say this until it happens. Like, I'm waiting for Google to buy BlackBerry and bring back the keyboard. That's all.
Yes.
That's all I want.
I think that's a given.
Hipster.
But I was actually kind of off topic, but on your point, Josh, what I really think should happen is I think BlackBerry should finally admit that they probably are listening to this, and if they are, hey, I don't mean anything by this, but clearly OS 10 really is a bit dead, and it always has been before it was even conceived. They could have easily just taken Android, put a launcher on it, and made OS 10.
Yeah.
And probably with like 1% of the money.
What?
And use the rest of the money to make good phones and like market stuff. And,
Yeah, not even just that. It's just the fact that you could even sideload Android apps onto a freaking BlackBerry, a BB10, you know, and you know the framework is there. You know, if they just you know sort of stop being so stubborn, you know, they could probably resurrect themselves a little, at least a little bit, if they just sort of embrace what everyone kind of assumes they will do one day. You know, okay.
Conformity, yes. Follow Google.
Right? I know we're here like Google's doing too much, and now we're like, follow Google.
Just do whatever Google says. It's fine.
Just install Google Play services. It'll make everything better.
Yep.
No, it won't.
Everything.
It'll never make it better. Dude, Google making us install Google Play services is the technological equivalent of turning out the lights and telling someone to close their eyes and open their mouth. And it just makes me so it makes me so uncomfortable, man.
It took me a second to imagine that image, and then I was so regretful about it.
But Josh, you could just look at Joe's like Skype image, and you've got the perfect example right now.
So, Joe, is Kirk McMaster your like idol then?
Oh, good God, no! Because I don't think what he's doing is any better. You know,
he's such a he's so over the top with everything that you read that Kirk McMaster says. You know, and I don't think it's helping the company at all.
But speculation wise, because you know, I don't think I said it well. Speculatory. What I think Android M is going to have is a bunch of smaller stuff, like akin to when KitKat got freaking cloud printing, because that was a revolutionary feature. It's going to be a bunch of stuff like that, like the screencasting in Lollipop, and you know, cloud printing in KitKat, and you know those small little tiny things that get baked into the operating system that constitute a change, but like not really a change that a lot of people are going to use. I think that's what Android M realistically it's going to be. It's going to be some small things here and there that, you know, are going to sound really impressive when they talk about it, and then when it gets put into practice, it'll be something that, you know, like people will use for a little bit, and it's screw it, the old way was better. And you know, like cloud printing. I mean, that sounded really exciting. Like, oh man, we could just tell it to print from our phone; it's gonna print. And then, like 2 years later, does anyone even use cloud printing?
I remember thinking that too. Yeah, I remember thinking that too. Like, it's like, oh, it'd be handy to print things from my phone just by pushing.
Well, how often do you print stuff? Like
never.
Yeah, never.
I mean, I don't. I have to at tax time. I have to dust off my printer and find all the cables. like I don't even know where half the cables are. Yeah, because I don't use it except for tax season. It's the only time the printer gets used, because I keep all my records digitally.
It is the year of our Lord 2015. There's no need for a printer anymore.
Tax time. Tax time.
No, I was thinking I managed to do all of my taxes without printing anything off.
I agree with Grushy. It needs printing. But on that topic of cloud printing, I bought.
See, I have an accountant though, Joe. So I handed all my stuff to them,
yeah.
and you know they, you know. So, but sorry, Narafi.
Official Android
Narafi.
Authority loan shark.
Oh, it happened. We said it wrong.
Narafi.
Now's your chance, Narav.
It's
Call him a
fine.
tosser.
Do it.
You damn
Yes,
tosser.
you're a tosser. Get my name right. Come on, man.
My bad. I'm
We
so
went through
sorry.
this at Josh's expense last time. I thought people would
I
have
was
realised.
calling you the right way, like in my mind, the right way until you said it, and now it's, you know, you have to listen to whatever Josh says. Of
He's
course.
good. He's good. Ah.
He sets the
Stop trying to
standard.
pass the
So
buck.
I think you should just change your name, and that will solve the problem.
Okay, I will. For the next one, I'll tell you guys what my new name is, but I can
Alright.
assure you it's going to be fun to say. But on the subject of cloud printing, I bought a new HP printer. It works out the box with iOS. It doesn't work with my S6. Like, I printed one thing off my iPhone, like this iPhone I've been like using for a few days, and that's more than I printed in God knows what ever off Android. The problem is that people kind of like going back to fragmentation and on a serious topic and all that rubbish. Like, the whole problem is you can introduce things like cloud printing, but what's the point if people like, okay, Google supports it, but you need to get all the printer manufacturers to support it without needing like. The ideal is to do the way iOS is, and it's just being able to print stuff without having to install apps, install drivers, and all of that. I can get this working with an S6, but I've got to download HP's app. I've got to install a driver. I've then got to actually hook up the printer to my computer, turn on a few settings. Yet versus iOS, I just press print, AirPrint, and all of a sudden it's printed within about 30 seconds. That's the whole problem. You can introduce all sorts of features, but given that, like, even Lollipop's on 10% now, and Android M will probably take a year to get to 5 or 10% or whatever. What's the point? Because no hardware manufacturer is actually ever going to support it.
And that's exactly, that's a great point, and that's exactly why I don't like it when people come up to me and be like, well, it doesn't matter if you don't have the latest version of Android, because as long as you have the latest version of Google Play services, you're up to date. No, you're not. Didn't like Lollipop have something like 9,000 new APIs that no one with Google Play services on 4.4 and back can even use? Like, and that's exactly the same problem. Is even KitKat. What's KitKat's thing right now? I didn't look at that. I just saw that Lollipop was at 10%. But I mean,
KitKat's like 59, is it? Or no, it's a bit more than that. I think 69. The last time I checked.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Right. Sorry for the clicky noises, everybody. KitKat is 39.8%. So not even half of the people. And hold on, counting Lollipop, which obviously has these APIs also, not even half of the people currently using Android, I think. Wait, hold on. What? Does this even add up to 100%? Okay, yeah, it does. I had to look. It just doesn't seem like it did for a second. But yeah, not even half of the people who rock an Android phone right now can use cloud printing. So what's the point of coming out with a printer for something that only half of a potential user base can use? And then you have to deal with the fact that, somebody running Jelly Bean might buy the cloud printer, like, oh yeah, cloud printer for Android, and then they can't use it. And it's like, well, why not? Because you don't have KitKat. And then they're like, well, that's your fault, obviously. And it's like, now it's you're dragging the printer companies into this, and it's like, no, they don't want to do it. And I understand why they don't want to do it. And it's because Google Play Services is a Band-Aid for a gunshot wound. And it's not really the kind of fix that it's the kind of fix Android has, but it's not the one that it needs right now.
Batman. Oh man. All right, well, we're coming up on the last 10 or so minutes here. I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about the G4. So the review came out yesterday, and I do have a couple of things that I want to say, but the only other person on the cast right now that obviously has a G4 is Nirav. So real quick, I wanted to get your thoughts on how you feel about the LG G4 so far, and just your thoughts so far. Do you have a leather backing? Let me ask that.
No, and I'm really, really, really disappointed about that because, okay, alright, everyone thought, oh, leatherback, it's going to look atrocious, and the company got more stick than if they had just not bothered announcing it before. But LG being LG, they thought, oh, let's make a big deal about a leatherback, and and then actually, the leatherback is gorgeous. So when this turned up, I can't admit that I wasn't a bit disappointed. But I've got the titanium finished
Same here.
plastic.
Yeah.
What is titanium finished plastic? Come on, man.
It's grey, is what it is.
There are two things that should never, ever be put together.
Yeah.
Titanium finished plastic. I mean, that just seems like a complete and utter waste. But I've got to be honest, I like it. And I'm just going to probably spiel off, and I'm not looking at your review when I say this. Josh, but what I actually think is the design is nice. The curve is okay. I can see why they've done it, and it's kind of a combination of like the 1M8, 1M9, and the G Flex 2, but they've kind of just brought their version of the M8 out, so it's just slightly curved, and it's really nice. The display, yeah, I like it. I can see why they made a big deal about like the DCI standard and all of that. And it is, I mean, it is pretty. It's better than the S6 when it comes to just when it comes to just like real colors and stuff, and it's really nice. The camera's fantastic. It's the one. I mean, I like the camera. I think it's really good.
I'm like 98% there with you on the camera. Like, you know, speaking of DCI standard, the thing is,
98%.
the thing is, I don't know. Like I've had a lot of times in the past with these reviews that I really thought that post processing makes or breaks this whole experience. And is that Grushy heading out?
Yeah, Grashy's got to go.
Yeah, my son's waking up.
He is with child. Wait, is that the phrase?
Yeah.
Is that the phrase? I'm sorry.
Yes, I have a child, and he's waking up, so I'm gonna have to. We're pretty much almost done anyway. So.
Yeah, no problem, brother. All right, thanks for being on,
take care,
Grushy.
guys.
Give your son a fist bump for us.
All right, I will. He actually likes doing that too, so I've taught him to.
All right, cool. Later,
All right.
Grushy.
Later. Bye.
Speaking of the camera on here, it's just there's still some post processing being done, and I'm kind of it kind of astounds me that we haven't figured this out yet. That, you know, you could just leave the data on the photo, and you don't have to put like noise reduction or anything like that on there, because it's been a standard that's been available for so long on DSLR cameras that, you know, these cameras just have their own ways of interpreting the color, but for the most part, when you get your JPEG, it's pretty much what you got, even if you did a raw photo. Like, you get the data, it's just sort of like put together in a nice way with their own post processing without too much noise reduction, because you can actually go into the settings and turn off noise reduction. I wish that we could do that with these phones, and LG unfortunately still has a little bit going on. Other than that, though, I do think the camera is great because of those manual controls. I have too much fun with those. And I like it. Yeah, I've already shot a lot of raw photos, and I've put them in Lightroom, and I had a lot of fun with those also. So it's possible to get some real high-quality photos from here. You just have to make sure you have an SD card in there, which is great, too. Like, this is the only phone that has removable battery and SD card slot. Out of the flagship.
I mean, the removable battery for me as well is really good because, I mean, the S6 battery just... yeah, it sucks ass, kind of thing. But let me ask you a question, Josh. Would you, like, for me personally, the camera is probably the best part. As nice as that display is, I think I prefer the slight oversaturation of the S6 display, or the S6 Edge display. Mm-hmm. Don't know why. It's kind of, it's very much a kind of an even balance between the display. But the camera's quite up there. The question is, would you buy it just for the camera? Or would you buy something like an S6 Edge or something else that has the camera but a little bit more as well? Because the G4's got the display, got the camera, but the experience to software for me just isn't as refined, and I can't believe I'm saying this, it isn't as slick as TouchWiz. On the S6, which is now kind of like the most, is probably setting a benchmark for user interfaces. And again, I can't believe I ever said that about something.
Somewhere a stock Android fan is having a stroke right now.
TouchWiz
is better.
Until they play with the S6.
TouchWiz polished. What?
Wow. I'm close to that point. This is the thing, though. On the one hand, it's a tough question to ask. It's a tough question to answer, I should say, because. And to your point, TouchWiz now is really good. Like, that's the thing. Like, when you compare it to this version of TouchWiz from the S6 and the S6 Edge, I agree with you. Like this operating system still feels a little bloaty, stuff like that. I just thought of this right now, but it's kind of true. It's been in the back of my mind. I measure operating systems in terms of their bloatware, in terms of their snappiness and smoothness, based upon how many areas in the operating system could be the place where translations get lost, you know, like where you get lost in translation. And there are so many areas in the LG UX, like, for example, that smart bulletin and a number of settings inside of the actual settings menus, that if this were a sloppily ported Korean phone, that's where you could get like, and there are a couple parts here that have that. Like, if you go in the settings menu and it says, let me see what it says real quick. If you're in tab view, you swipe over to sound and notifications, and it has to scroll through that that little area. Like those areas are they're a lot less in this version of TouchWiz, this new one, which I give it so much credit for because it feels actually kind of Spartan. It feels like they dialed it back and it actually worked. On the LG, unfortunately, it doesn't have that type of feeling. So I give TouchWiz, Samsung, I should say, I give Samsung a little bit of the edge in terms of that. But as much as I weigh the camera in my reviews, I would be happy with either phone, honestly. And
for me, the thing is, I guess you're using the Korean version, aren't you?
yeah.
Because I'm using the same. To be fair, mine still, whenever I turn the screen on, it's still giving me the time update on what the time it is in Korea, even though I've turned every setting off in the world, and it still tells me, oh look, it's 3:30 in the morning in Korea, because my family live in Korea and all sorts, and I'm friends with everyone in Korea or something. It's really that important to me. That was sarcasm, in case anyone didn't realise.
The phone is homesick.
Yeah, basically. I personally think, obviously, kind of got to take into context the fact that this isn't clearly a release candidate. I mean, my phone at somewhere even says not for sale on it, somewhere on this phone. Well, no, it's on the box at least. It's a big sticker saying not for sale right over the G4. But given that I used a G3 that was pre-release, if you will, and not kind of retail, it is impressive and it's come quite a long way since the G3. The problem is that as much as I like it, and I really do, and if I had the leather version, I could probably tell you I'd be feeling completely different, to the point where the leather would have just sealed me, because the leather is that beautiful. But this just doesn't, at least the kind of the titanium finish just doesn't feel as premium as it should do. And that there is a problem.
I heard that a couple of times, yeah. And I remember Marco from Phone Dog and Dom Esposito, they had the same exact feeling that the brushed plastic of the G3 felt so much better. I wanted to ask Feisty and Joe. Feisty, we haven't heard from you in a bit. I'm so sorry for that. Have you seen the G4 review, or have you been following like the releases of the G4 over the last couple of days?
Yes, I have. Not extensively, but enough to know the basics.
How do you feel about it?
It's tough. I like LG as a company, and I like what they've done with phones in the past specifically. But this the G line, if you will, the G2, the G3 specifically for me, it didn't fit in my hand very well. So I mean, I've yet to pick up the G4, and I won't make any true judgments until I do so. But I'm expecting that it's just going to have that same kind of slip and slide feeling to it, and it's certainly leather would help that out. But their plastics to me just I keep dropping LG phones, and I pretty much don't drop any other phones. It just, I don't know why it doesn't quite fit in my hand, and it's slippery. It just doesn't work. The other thing for me is I think the size of these phones. I mean, the G4 is 5.5 inch. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've got a lot of tablets. I've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 10.6. I've got all the sizes of tablets, specifically 2 7-inch tablets. I mean, a 5.5 inch phone to me is it's too big. I don't want anything more than just a 5-incher, just because I've got the tablets already. I mean, that's another discussion, obviously, but...
But you know what? I agree with you, and I think that's the reason why I wouldn't run out and buy a G4 right away, because I used this for the past week, this G4, and then just last night I picked up my S6 Edge, and I was like, oh man, where has this been all my whole life? Like, because it just feels perfect, and I do think that the G2 probably was that sweet spot. And it had the unique button layout and made it look distinctive, but it was just the right size. And LG is like, no, big screens all day. And there are times,
beautiful screens, yeah,
yes,
but yeah.
Exactly. There are times when it's beautiful and it's so much fun to use and playing games on it, watching YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, all that stuff. And then when I pick it up in the car while I'm driving, trying to like respond to something or look at what notification I have, I just feel like I'm gonna die, because it's like the hand gymnastics are just like they're not too bad, but it's not something you want to do in certain situations.
Just on that though, I think that they made the handset not. It's probably. I mean, 5.5 inches is huge. Let's be honest. Like for standard, it's kind of phablet versus phone kind of thing. In a man versus food style kind of thing. But as much as I agree, kind of get what you were saying, Feisty, I actually think that size-wise, the G4 is an example of a 5.5 inch that is usable in one hand. Because you get other 5.5 inches phones that are just way like that. People have gone, oh, we're going to go big screen, but you know what? We're going to throw loads of bezels on there and goes like as big a device as we can.
Sony.
This is probably the only one that I could comfortably use in one hand, despite the fact it's 5.5 inches. So I think LG deserves some credit for being able to kind of make the handset user-friendly and kind of one-hand friendly-ish, despite the fact it's 5.5 inches, because not many people can do that. And no one really has apart from this.
Good, that's exciting to hear. Yeah, I can't wait to put one in hand then.
Yeah,
that'll be good.
I think I kind of agree there. Yeah, it's that curve. That curve is nice and subtle. You know, it's like it's very Motorola-esque for them to put this type of curve on here for ergonomics rather than just for like the sake of having a curve. You know. All right, Joe, how do you feel? Our resident HTC One M9 lover. How do you how do you feel about the G4?
You know, it was the thing that made me the most curious is how, like, I mean, it was obviously a big launch and it got a bunch of coverage from, people like us, but I haven't seen on social media stuff, I haven't seen the same kind of buzz about it that I've seen with the HTC One M9 and the Galaxy S6. And it actually makes me curious because like the phone seems like a home run, removable back, external storage, huge battery, big screen, distinctive style. I do a small little bit of a criticism on your review there, Josh. Under your pros, you put like feels less bloated, and then under cons, you put still feels bloated.
Oh, and I'm trying to remember what language I was trying to use there. I think I put the word almost in there though. Almost feels less bloated because the reason why is because it feels so smooth, and this is something that LG UX hasn't really felt like.
I understood what you meant, it's like, there's still a bunch of bloatware there, but it feels less bloated than it did last year. It's just something we brought up in the Slack chat the other day, and we were having a laugh at you about it. But
I also wanted to clear something up on my review, but I'll do that after you're done, Joe.
But it seems like a really solid phone to me. I can't imagine, unless you're like feisty and you have, little tiny hands. I can't imagine a reason why this isn't, among the best, maybe top 2, top 3 phones that it's going to be released this year. And the thing is like, the G3 was the same way last year, and the G2 was the same way the year before that. Exactly what point do we start like taking LG's launch events with the same kind of, excitement that everybody has for the One M9 and, the Galaxy S6 events? And it's, I don't know, I mean, obviously it's not us. We covered the hell out of it, but just like from like an audience perspective, like I just don't see people being excited about it, and I don't know why, because it seems like a really good phone.
I think it's because LG announced pretty much at least 50% of the phone before it. So others like Samsung, HTC tease stuff, and they do really nice teasers. Let's be honest. I mean, touching on your social media thing, HTC probably has the best social media out of the big manufacturers, because Samsung doesn't really do much. LG does nothing, but HTC is quite active with the whole One Life, M9 Life, One M9 Life, or
something like
whatever
that,
the hashtag is.
I never engaged with the hashtags, but I know what you're talking about.
And they've got the Elevate as well, and they really kind of promote. They've got people and fanboys to help promote it. With LG, with Samsung, everyone takes it because S5 aside, you can be sure that the next Samsung device is going to have something cool on it. The S5 was just a whole lot of crap. But and I used it for 6 months, and I'm telling you that. So I speak purely out of like my experience. The G4, I don't think they really did enough. They announced chunks of it before, and that was it. And now what they should have done is teased it and done like subtle teasers. even before the S6 Edge, before MWC, Samsung had everyone talking about that teaser. That teaser, we all know which teaser I'm talking about. The one that was black with just the faint outline of the bezel of the edge.
Sex appeal.
And the sex appeal. There you go. Right there. But
So you're saying that the
Nothing-
LG
there's no, like-
G4 is an unattractive phone? Is it the fat phone that the skinny phones take pictures next to make themselves look even skinnier? Is that what's going on here?
It's
really
it's
nice.
a really nice phone, you know. But I think what we're trying to get at here, and I think it's a combination of, yes, this phone came out after the other big two, but also like LG just doesn't have the marketing budget, you know, and they're probably the most laid back when it comes to social media and marketing and whatnot. HTC tries really hard. I mean, they had the freaking celebrities trying to market the hell out of it, and then social media, and then Samsung. Like, just one quick note: that commercial I keep seeing on TV where there's that guy doing that perspective unboxing of the S6 or the S6 Edge. Why is his name Josh? Like, I wonder if Samsung did that on purpose, just to be honest. But anyway,
I think you should send them a letter going, I want royalties.
right?
Every time you use a name.
I know it's a white guy, but I want
Anyone uses
royalties.
the name Josh.
It'd been way better if his name was Josh V. Like, hey, I'm Josh V.
Right, and then he
Died
starts
laughing.
parkouring, and like, what is going on here? And you know, it's just funny. And but anyway, it does come down to marketing, and I don't think LG has that kind of power when it comes to marketing. And this is a phone that, if you look at it, then you will realize it's a great phone. It's probably the best alternative for a unique / feature-filled device out there. That's why it is on par with the S6 and the S6 Edge, especially since those two phones don't have those two main features, the removable battery and the expandable storage. But the thing is, you have to make your own effort to find it, and LG is not going to shove it in your face.
That's their mistake. I mean, what they really should have done is hired a social media expert to plug the crap out of it on social media. And I mean, they've got the G4 preview hashtag going on. They're going to give it to 4,000 people around the world before it goes on sale. And that's a unique effort. And I mean, I got talking to the head of marketing at LG UK. I know the guy quite well, and I was there at the launch, and he was just like, we can't do... And I am just kind of ad-libbing off the top of my head. I can't remember word for word what he said, but the gist of it was, they can't use the same marketing methods as others because they don't have the money to put behind it. Which, I mean, I reckon they should have a bigger marketing budget than someone like HTC does.
True.
Because they're a bigger company. They really should. If they don't, then they've really got to ask why. But what I would hope to see from them is real kind of, and not just, oh, let's throw stuff out, throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks. But a real deep understanding of something like social media and how it best applies to them. How they can turn the G4 into the most sought after phone on social media. If it's just going on Instagram and Instagramming the crap out of loads of places around the world with a G4, using the LG G4 hashtag. That is all you need to do to get loads of people on Instagram loving the camera, is take pictures of amazing things. It's not that difficult. I mean, I've never been to Korea, but I'm sure there's some interesting stuff in Korea. And they've got people all around the world. They've got offices all around the world. All you've got to do is have, say, 10 offices or 20 offices, each posting one picture from their relevant city, captured on the G4 once a day, once every 2 days. And all you're going to see is G4 pictures coming up, and all of a sudden, wow, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't realise the camera was that good. And that instantly is one of the selling points, because the camera is one of the selling points of the G4. Yeah. But instead, it's just like, well, here's a great phone, but you know what? If you don't want it, don't worry about it. We're not going to throw it at you, Josh. It's like, if you don't want to buy it, please don't worry about it. It's just not a problem. Whereas, honestly, if I was them, I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, you come to see my phone? I doubt you best be buying this damn thing.
Yeah. You know Look at it.
Be a man.
Do we know how LG markets at home versus abroad? I mean, we're talking about North America, UK and stuff, but do you think they're marketing in Korea and closer in there, the Asian markets? Do you think maybe they're doing a little bit stronger?
Oh, I certainly do, but there's another fact about, if you're going to talk about home marketing, is that they have a much larger line of phones in Korea and much more unique phones in Korea than they do here in the West. And in the West, we pretty much know about this one, the G Flex, and that's about it. And then we see all these like articles and these pictures of like these unique, colorful, super cartoony, super Asian phones out in Korea. So of course they have a huge foothold out there. But over here, they just kind of don't put that much. Like everyone's trying to go for this like westernized, like look at this sleek phone, executive leather, all this stuff. You know, the G3 commercials that I saw for so long after the G3 launched, Those kinds of advertisements are fine. They were just everywhere, and maybe they could do that with this phone, and maybe some people will take notice with that. But I don't know. Like, it's not going to be the phone that everyone talks about, and that is a shame. So I agree with you there, Narav.
I think one, just kind of summing up my point about LG, the biggest problem they've got is, and I think applies to a lot of companies, is brand perception. Now, Samsung have done really well because the Galaxy range has been it's blown up, and people will forget about the really, really, really crap Samsungs that they used to produce. And I mean the really crap ones. I used to work in retail selling them. And trust me, when I say really crap, they were really, really crap. HTC has a brand perception, but people love them. The problem is, and I know this because having, again, sold to people, is without the marketing to throw the product and all the benefits down someone and ram it down someone's throat quite literally and physically, you go to someone and go, oh, look, here's an amazing LG G4. Oh, no, I don't want an LG. Oh, here's a Samsung. Yeah, doesn't matter. It could be a Samsung, a £20 Samsung that's being sold for 500 quid. But, oh, it's a Samsung Galaxy. Oh, it must be amazing. Because it's the brand awareness and perception.
Yes.
And that's LG's biggest problem, is changing that brand perception. And that's what the likes of HTC have had to do.
Yeah, exactly.
When they were going away from the really bad devices of the past, and kind of the one range helped do that. And same with Samsung, because probably before the S2, they were nowhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Hashtag we don't suck. There you go. That's LG's new brand slogan. We don't suck, we promise.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the year, because we're coming up on the halfway point of the year, usually marked off by Google I/O, and yeah, we have pretty much 3 of the biggest releases already out, and whatever's going to happen later in the year. I mean, obviously we have the Note 4, but that's still Samsung. I mean, Note 5, but that's still Samsung, and Sony, and then we'll see what else comes out. But yeah, I wanted to make a point real quick about the battery life section in my review. People like Dom Esposito was and I were talking about this, and he was ranting for a little bit that this whole thing about screen on time as a way of measuring battery life is just crazy. I've been reading the Reddit posts and the YouTube comments, and they're all pretty much giving me slack for saying that 3 hours of screen on time is bad for battery life. Narav, how much battery life are you getting on there? How do you feel about the battery?
I'll be honest, and I've got to be completely frank about this. I've had this. I got this on Wednesday afternoon, so I've had this no more than a day and a half, 2 days tops.
Gotcha.
So let me look at this example today. I've used the phone a little bit today, and I'm just going to use this because it's the only thing I've actually got to kind of reference. Today I've used it. Oh no, it's the last time I charged this was 27 hours ago, and my screen on time is 1 hour and 12 minutes so far.
I love that you put it that way, because who out there, and Dom, this is what Dom told me, is like this whole screen on time thing is kind of weird, because if your phone is able to make it from point A to at night point B without dying and without you being worried that you need an external battery or a plug, then that should be what matters. And depending on screen on time is not the problem of the phone, it's a problem of what your lifestyle is. Like, are you on your phone for hours on end during a day that you need 5+ hours of screen on time? When in reality, if you're able to go through your normal day and get to the end of the day with, let's say, still 20% at the very least, then that's actually pretty good. Like that'll serve your needs. And for me, 3 hours of screen on time for about 16 to 20 hours of total time in one day, that's to me pretty good, because those 3 hours are the 3 hours that I used the phone. The rest of the time, it was able to still remain. So that was my thing.
Let me kind of pick up on that, because I'd actually had this it was like a 3-hour conversation with someone the other day, debating. They're not on Twitter or anything, but it was debating the same thing. And my point of view on this, and this is where I say that the Galaxy S6 battery is fine, and people are like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you're full of rubbish and full of crap and all of that. And I'm like, well, I do know what I'm talking about, because I think back to 2 years ago when I was working retail. The whole point is, Like, we're kind of power users. We sit there and power on our phone all day. And then you get business users who do the same, apart from when they're in meetings. But average Joe, who makes up maybe 90%, and I don't mean Joseph Hindi, but I mean just general Joe. Not you, Joe.
That's the second week in a row someone has said that to me.
You are certainly not average, I'll tell you that much.
You gotta be careful there. Joe was in the army. I don't think he was a general, though.
Nope.
General Joe, you know.
There we go.
Yeah.
General Joe.
But no, look, going on, what does average Joe blogs do on their phone? And the point is, you get up in the morning, say, this is what I would say that 75% of people do, but the timings might be wrong. You get up at, say, 6:30 in the morning, and if you're working, you've got to spend an hour travelling to work. So in the morning, you might spend half an hour on your phone checking your updates or whatever. Then you're on the train, maybe spending half an hour on the train, listening to music, watching a film, reading a book, doing whatever. You get to work, and that's it. And I'm sorry, if you're sitting at work and you spend 5 hours or you need 3 hours screen on time between, say, 9 and 6 when you're at work, your boss should fire you. Because, let's be frank, you're clearly not doing any bloody work.
Yeah.
Then the cycle repeats itself. So when you get to work, you maybe had an hour and a half usage. You then at lunch might use it for another half an hour, because if you spend the whole hour lunch break on your phone, you clearly haven't eaten anything and you're probably going to waste away and collapse by the end of the day. Or at least if you're me, because I need my lunch and stuff. Then you get to the end of the day and you're like, right, I'm going to come home, etc. Or you go out. The point is, Josh, you're right. 3.5 hours screen on time. If you can achieve that off, say, 8, I calculate it at 6:30 in the morning till, if you're waking up at 6:30 in the morning every day, chances are you're in bed and sleeping by 11:30 midnight. So I count that as 18 to 19, so between 18 and 20 hours. Average use case, and this is what people will say when they say it can last a whole day. Manufacturers don't think midnight to midnight, because if you're up midnight to midnight, you'll be like me on the podcast 2 weeks ago, an absolute freaking zombie and no idea what you actually said. And on a side topic, can be tangent. Someone asked me what I said on the podcast, and I really couldn't remember, so I just made it up, and then I got proven wrong. But the whole point is 18 to 20 hours. If a phone lasts you from 18 to 20 hours usage, with, say, 3 to 4 hours screen on time, that's it. That's what a smartphone is designed to do for average consumers. Now, if you're a power user who spends their life and your job is on social media and all you do is do social media off your phone, A, get on your laptop, because I guarantee it'll be a lot easier. And B, then clearly it's not going to last you 18 hours, because if you can get 18 hours screen on time, I want to know what phone you're using. Because it's probably got like 6-day battery life.
Yeah.
And you're probably using something like a 5146, like an old Nokia or something, and using mobile web or something. But that's the whole point. You've kind of hit the nail on the head. If you can hit 3 to 4 hours screen on time of 18 to 20 hours usage, this is what a smartphone is designed to do. Yeah. Not spend 10 hours screen on time, because what's the point? You're kind of picking at straws to find a fault, and if you're doing that, then you're a very sad person.
Yeah, on the Samsung review, I said that it got close to 3 hours screen on time, but that was only like a 12-hour day. Like if I woke up at 11 and slept at 11, then that was what my usage was. So that's when I said it was pretty average. That's pretty average battery life. This G4 on the other hand gets 3 hours, but I had like 16 hours worth of a day, and I thought that was pretty great.
So that's good battery life for me.
Yeah, so
that would suit me perfectly in my average day.
Yeah, Feisty and Joe, do you guys? I almost said Hindi. Feisty and Joe, do you guys agree? Like how do you measure your battery life in that case?
You can call me Hendy, that's okay. I don't mind. I don't know why you're like, I almost called you Hendy. Like,
well, because you're the only one
it's my freaking name.
Well, you're like the only one who I don't really. You're almost the only one who I don't like name via last. Like name via your last name or anything. Because we got Feisty, Grushy, and your name already ends with Y. So now I'm realizing, well, how come I don't do that?
Hindi.
Yeah, Hindi E over there.
And we call you Fergie, dude.
They almost Darcy used to call me that actually. He used to call me Vergy Verg.
It's like a mixture between like Fergie and The Verge. So I don't know how I'd feel about that.
But yeah, so okay, yeah, go on ahead. I know we're going a little long with the show, but I wanted to make sure we got this point out there. So sorry, guys.
Battery life, like, I think that there's a huge disconnect between what people remember about cell phone battery life and what battery life is today. Because, like, back in the day, like, oh yeah, my cell phone, lasted for a week between charges. Like, what did you do on it? for that whole week. You made a few phone calls, you sent a few text messages, but what did you do? You didn't do anything. So I challenge anybody to do this. If they don't think that their phone battery is any good, turn off mobile data entirely. Turn off all syncing to all services, period. And do absolutely nothing but make phone calls and send text messages on your phone. And tell me how long the battery lasts. Because I've been doing that, for a while now with my Nexus 5 because I don't, do anything on it, really. So if I turn off mobile data and turn off all the syncing, the Nexus 5 can sit there and do nothing for 6 or 7 days before it runs out of battery. But people need to realize that, like, cell phone usage or smartphone usage is not like cell phone usage. It is more like computer usage, where you're always online, doing stuff, playing games. All of that stuff, not only takes up battery life when it's dragging data down from, the towers, but it's also using CPU, especially with gaming. Because people are like, well, I want 6 hours of screen on time so I can play Clash of Clans for 6 straight hours. What? Like, that's not possible with today's technology. You're never going to get something like that because that's not how, that's not how cell phones are supposed to be used, but that's how we try to use them. And then we turn around and say, well, the battery life really sucks because I'm using it wrong. It'd be like if somebody took their car and started driving in the grass and then complained that the shocks sucked because it was a bouncy ride. And then you just sit in the passenger seat and you're looking at him like, you're doing it wrong. And that's the way that it really is. Like, people are doing, you guys pretty much have hit the nail on the head. The perception of cell phone battery life today is wrong. And it's 100% wrong because, if you used it to just make the phone calls and just send the text messages, then your phone's going to last exactly as long as your old Nokia did. Just on top of those two things, you also surf 3 different social media sites and play Candy Crush or Clash of Clans or some other game that takes up a bunch of stuff. Then you have the weather data syncing on top of that. And if you didn't disable location services, then pretty much every app I just mentioned wants to know where you are every 30 minutes all day long. And then on top of all of that stuff, you have the under apps, the apps that you have but you don't really use that often but still turn on every now and again. Like I have Amazon MP3 on this phone. I don't know why. I think it was just some bloatware, but it took up 1% of my battery today. I don't know why. I've never opened it. I don't know why it opened. But then, you have those other apps that are on there that are going to run and have processes in the background. Like SwiftKey runs all day long. Do you guys know that? SwiftKey never closes.
Yeah.
It runs in a process.
I know that, yeah. And it's frustrating. It's been in. There was one point when I can't remember what I was doing, but I spent a lot of the day typing, and I realized by the end of the day, screen was number 1, SwiftKey was number 2.
Yeah.
Say what? How did that take 10% of my battery? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it runs in a separate process. And that's the thing that people don't really think about very often, is that not only are you using your screen and, your speakers and, your mobile data and phone calls and text messages, but you've also got like 2 or 3 dozen processes that are always running in the background. They're always pinging your location and dragging more data down. And that's really the difference between the old Nokia and today's smartphone, is that extra stuff that you have to do. So to me, if I can go from waking up to going to bed, regardless of the screen on time, regardless of what I did that day, if I can wake up, use my phone and then go to bed and my phone hasn't died, that's a good battery life day for me.
Thank you.
I'm probably say that as long as it lasts for whilst I'm out the house, because I do use my phone quite a bit and I'm willing to admit that. If I can leave my house in the morning and when I used to work for a living and more than I do now, and then having to actually go to an office and all of that, and then I get home and it's still got charge, I'm a happy man.
Yeah.
And I think the point is that everyone's perception of battery life will be different. For me, battery life is that. For some people, battery life is getting from midnight to midnight, and they're going to complain because no smartphone in the world will ever do that with the amount they use their phone. Joe, you said it right. You don't realise that actually you've got shed loads of stuff running that you have no idea about.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Feisty? We'll go ahead and end on this note here.
All right. I thought I had a unique look at devices here. Pretty much in my world, if the device isn't in my hand and it's not full, then it's on a charger. If it's bedside table, the desk, the living room, pretty much every room in my house, I've got enough USB cables and chargers set up that I can charge anything anywhere. obviously that's not available for everybody. If you work on the road or whatnot, you don't have power outlets. But if you're an office worker, there is no excuse not to plug in. Cables are cheap. I go to Monoprice, they're $2. Get a dozen of them. So all of my devices, I pretty much keep them fully charged all the time. I'll unplug them, I use them, you burn the battery a little bit, you plug it back in. It's almost rare for me to go a full day without charging, like your daily driver phone, for example. So, sit in the car, it goes in the dock, it's charging. Is this bad for long-term battery life? Sure, but you're still going to get a couple of years out of the device, and are you still going to have it in 2 years anyways? Or are you going to upgrade to the next phone anyways? So that's kind of it for me. That is
really
yes, I like to test the devices and see what kind of battery life they get. And on screen is obviously important because that's when you're using it. But find a charger. Just have chargers around. They're cheap.
And it's almost
like a
become...
laptop, dude. You use it like a laptop.
Yeah.
And take it off the charger when it's needed, put it right the hell back on there when you're done with it. That's pretty cool. I never thought of using it like that.
And it's important to find those apps that are, rogue apps that truly are eating battery. You don't need that. It's extra stress on your machine that isn't necessary. But for the most part, I do not subscribe to locking the machine down to save juice. I want, give me full power. Just let's do this.
Yeah. And so to sort of end on that note, just to paraphrase kind of what Dom was saying, like, to anyone out there who's asking, like, how do I get better battery life on this phone? Like, kind of like what Dom said, he was like, go outside. But the way that I was going to say it was like, if you need 4.5 hours screen on time for your smartphone, you should probably talk to your girlfriend more. Like, you should probably be talking to your significant other a little bit more. Don't have that phone on during dinner. Don't like I still get really antsy when I sort of step outside of myself and realize that my girlfriend and I are at like a restaurant and we're both on our phones, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, it doesn't happen often at all, but like that's what I'm thinking in my head is like, if you need that much screen on time and you need that phone to really last for that long, you probably need to stop using it as that much, But yeah, I just wanted to make sure to get that point out there because I saw a lot of comments about it, and a few people were like, "Oh, but like 2 years ago, we had 4.5 hours of screen on time." I'm like, "Where? Show me that phone that did that."
No, they didn't. And the thing is what happens is people get like root access, and then they turn everything off, and then their phone does spectacularly. Because when you fresh install a ROM, those services haven't opened up yet. Like that first few days, your phone is still kind of setting itself up underneath and it's not doing anything. And then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot to sign into Twitter. Now Twitter process is running 24/7. Oh, I forgot to sign into Google Plus. Now Google Plus is running 24/7. And if you're dumb enough to enable the auto upload of photos and videos over mobile.
Yeah.
First of all, if you're that dumb, like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean any offense by this, but you should probably look at yourself in the mirror, slap yourself across the face and say, bad person. As a bad person.
I take offense to this, Joe. I have mine set up. I have videos off, videos over Wi-Fi only. But
honestly, I
my
think
pictures going out.
I think it's super useful as a thing. But I think our argument here is that if you're complaining about battery life, you got to look at why, and that's one of them.
It's really important to figure out exactly what your device is doing. That's something that most people don't do, and that's why I don't really engage too much in battery life conversations. Like, I'll post mine every now and again, but I know exactly what's eating my battery and why. I can't explain it, but I know that Facebook runs a process that, opens up my mobile radio for 25 minutes a day and stays awake for, 4 hours at a time. I don't know why it does it, but I know that it does it. And I know where my battery life is going.
So that, God forbid, if anyone drives by your house, their phone will go, Joe was nearby.
I have that setting disabled on the website. Like, I don't even...
Oh, got it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't... it's frustrating, but that is a topic for a different podcast, I think.
For sure. But yeah, we'll see where our topic goes for next week. Grushy, just want to give one quick shout out to him. Hopefully he's having a good time with his son. Thank you for being on the show, Grushy, still. And he had to duck out a little bit early, but he still was able to put our poll out and get us a great topic for today. Thank you guys very much, Joe, John, and Narav, for being on. It was a nice and spirited podcast. We talked about Android M, the speculation behind it, but I wanted to make sure we talked about the G4. So that was the FDP for this week. Make sure you stay tuned to Android Authority for all of the best coverage. Just put out that LG G4 review, so make sure you check that out. Check out all of the content from our colleagues. Everyone here on the podcast makes some great stuff, not only for the YouTube channel, but of course for AndroidAuthority.com. And Joe's app videos, among the best on YouTube, hands down. That's why he's our app guy. And keep listening to the FDP. We'll have you there next week. We don't know who's going to be on, but if we have this particular panel on, that'd be perfect. I like this early recording schedule, honestly, and I'm sure Nirav is very happy about it.
Oh, I'm like, this is perfect for me because I'm actually kind of like not falling asleep after 5 minutes.
He's rather than half aware, right?
The only thing that
other than like, what was it last time? Like 5:45 o'clock in the morning by the time, or 6 a.m. when we finished, and I'd been up like 22 hours, and I was a zombie to the point where I kind of fell asleep.
I feel
at my chair, at my desk.
I simultaneously feel very bad for that, but also eternally grateful to you for that.
No, it's fine. I enjoyed it. Like, to be honest, it was brilliant. It was actually a lot of fun because it was so late in the morning, and I could, when I completely screwed up, as I usually do on most podcasts, I could just blame the fact I was tired. It gave me the perfect fallout excuse. It was amazing.
you're really not part of Android Authority until you look at the clock and go, damn, what time is it? Oh shit, I gotta go to bed.
That's true.
Oh no, I've done that before. You know what the funny thing was? I sent, I think by the time I actually fell asleep, it was about 8:30 in the morning, and I was up again 2.5 hours later, as if I'd had an 8-hour sleep. It was brilliant.
Nice. It's like a long night of drinking. You wake up early for some reason, and then
It's a Friday night, man. Long night of drinking.
Because you're too hungover to sleep. You're like, I feel like crap so bad I have to wake up and deal with this.
All right, cool. Well, again, thank you guys very much, and thank God we still have like the whole day ahead of us. That's what I love about this timing right now. But in any case, keep listening to the FDP all over all over the different podcast networks. The SoundCloud is actually going to open up. I'll have a link for it in the post at AndroidAuthority.com. This episode and our first episode are going to be uploaded to there, and I'm going to keep doing that in the cycle for now. And we have Stitcher, Pocket Cast, iTunes, and then of course the YouTube side of things. I want to try to put like some extra clips at the beginning like I did last week just to give the YouTube version some weight. But if there aren't any, you're still able to go to YouTube and listen to it there if you're not a big podcaster anyway. That should do it for our episode this week, guys. As always, our outro. Keep it tuned here for all the best because Android Authority is your source for all things Android.
Android.
Oh, Android. Oh.
Android. Oh, yeah.
All right.
We kind of failed though.
I would totally eat Android-shaped marshmallows. Just saying.
Oh, I thought that was going a totally different way. We're loyalists here at Android Authority. Oh my god. Agreed. Oh man, imagine like a Lucky Charms with androids in it.
Totally.
All right, so Android M. Now, I just did a search right before this podcast just to see, like, what articles do we have on Android Authority about Android M anyway? And we have two. One of them is Android M revealed on the schedule, and then the next one, Android M reportedly to be, or supposedly going to be released at Google I/O. And that's it. That's the first time I've ever searched for something on Android Authority, and there was an end to the page. Given that we really don't know much about Android M, which is a travesty because Google I/O is right around the corner, and we're still kind of okay. This was one of the poll options, but I suppose this still fits. We're right around the corner from Google I/O, and if Android M is actually going to be announced there, we're still in the middle of Android L release cycle, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, they did the
I mean,
exact
we
same
just
thing.
finally got 5.1 on the Nexus 9.
You guys, don't forget that this is exactly what happened last year also, when they announced Android L and KitKat only had 10% of the market share. Like, this is typical behavior from the Googles. So, I mean, yeah, it's right in the middle of the release cycle, and this is... I've complained about it like for weeks now, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I mean, it's the yearly release cycle. I think they're trying to get back into it.
Well, but typically there's been like a lesser version in the summer, and then the big one later. And so, are they just shifting to once a year having release?
I don't know, maybe.
Because really, you can't really count 5.1. I mean, yeah, it's 5.1, but can you really count it as?
Well, you can't.
I don't.
You can't make an announcement at I/O about 5.1. Not necessarily.
Well, yeah, it's not. Well, I mean, it didn't bring in. I mean, even if they had waited for all the bug fixes in 5.1, it wouldn't have been special enough to like make a big announcement about.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even like compared to like the Jelly Bean point, 0.2, 0.3, there's less difference, And so, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to move to a once a year.
Yeah, probably so.
And of course, we don't know how long it'll be before they actually like. I highly doubt they're releasing this summer. They're going to probably do a developer preview, and who knows how long they'll wait. I mean, I would imagine not until the next Nexuses at the end of the year.
Yep.
And so that basically means it's been a year since, the last update. Because like I said, I don't really count 5.1. 5.1's not an update. It's just fixing things that should have been there from day one.
Right. And then like maybe a few additions to the auxiliary Android platform. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FDP by Android Authority, Android Authority's podcast, now called the FDP. We do some explanation as to why we changed the name, but mainly it was because we knew you guys liked that hashtag, and we wanted to keep it as well. But we also read our YouTube comments, so we will respond to some of those. Let's just put it this way. It is not what you think it is for those of you who have been commenting, particular ones on our YouTube channel about what FDP stands for. Nonetheless, we have a spirited conversation about that and get right into Android M, the supposed release that's going to come out at Google I/O this year, which is just around the corner. And yours truly, Joshua Vergara, will be heading over to that show to bring you all the best from that event. I'm really excited about it, but we also talk about what we want to see in Android M and even pontificate as to what M might stand for. And we get a lot of really great suggestions from the crew. We actually have a full 5-panel show this time around, as Nirav was able to join us on this particular show, and Andrew Grush, because he has a kid who woke up in the beginning of the day, because we did this early on a Thursday, if I remember correctly. He was able to duck out just a little bit early, so we were still able to have a full panel for this episode. Episode number 16, where we also talk a little bit about the LG G4, which I had just put out the review for, so I hope you guys all watched that. Joe Hindi and Jonathan Feist join us as well, as our usual panel is, so we all just talk about those things here. I did want to get a couple of announcements out of the way. We did finally get our SoundCloud account up and running, so make sure you head over to the description below if you're in the YouTube description, and also head over to the full post for the FDP at androidauthority.com so you can see and find the link to the SoundCloud account for us. So for those of you who've been wanting SoundCloud, you now got it. After that, we're coming up on a lot of different events in the next couple of weeks, so we might have some special shows in store for you guys. But nonetheless, that should pretty much do it for this intro. Keep it tuned here, and remember, if you're on the YouTube channel, you can always go to iTunes, to SoundCloud now, to Stitcher, or to Pocket Cast, any of the podcast programs that are out there, and you'll be able to listen to the FDP in that particular fashion. One of the best ways of listening to the Android Authority podcast. So, without any further ado, here is number 16, episode number 16, I should say, of the FDP, Android M and LG G4. Hope you guys enjoy.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Son of a Bitch podcast.
Yes, we changed it up, and
we read our YouTube comments.
yes, we do. Okay. I guess that's what we're going to start off with, because obviously we're not naming it that because of what it means in particular languages. And
dude, that would be
Feisty,
a great.
you've hit the mark,
that
man.
would be a great promotion, wouldn't it?
Did you get a free Kit Kat when you had Kit Kat? No.
But you got a nice Easter egg when you opened up your Kit Kat and there was an Android robot there. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, those
that
didn't
was
get
it.
sold around here. I never got to see one of those in person.
Those were kind of cool. Like you opened it up and they missed an opportunity. They should have been handing out like green tea Kit Kats, so it was green. But yeah, that was the thing. How about you, Groshy? What do you think M is going to stand for?
I don't know, mackerel.
Mackerel.
Worst version of Android ever.
No, I'd say marshmallow is probably the most likely, but if they could go M&M, but that would sound kind of weird after a while. I don't know.
They should keep up those company centric sponsorships. I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it doesn't roll off the tongue to me.
I guess
M&M.
so. I mean, you had.
I have M&M.
I agree. Marshmallow probably will be it, but really they.
Who knows though? I mean, they don't always go for obvious ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
We thought, well, key lime pie, and then all of a sudden it became Kit Kat, and then
the lollipop was pretty obvious. I think.
I really think it's gonna be milkshake. To be honest,
milkshake.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Ooh,
yeah,
milkshake.
I really think it's gonna be milkshake. But the one that came to me, and actually it was funny when Joe saying Macarena made me think of this. You know what? Like given Mountain View, San Francisco, all these like yuppie hipster people up in San Francisco, I think it would be macaroon.
Macaroon.
Yeah, those little wannabe hamburger things. Like,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think you're
maybe.
right there in terms of
mince pie.
Could be the one.
And
is
the
funny.
statue on the lawns at Google would just be a big pile of chocolate brown. Macaron cookie. I was trying to say cookie. That's the words. Yeah.
Chocolate brown. Love it.
Big pile of chocolate brown in the lawn. Yeah, we're all
Totally.
thinking of chocolate, obviously.
Total tangent, by the way. Like I saw this on. I don't know if anyone here watches At Midnight on Comedy Central, but there's that emoji that looks like poop. This is total tangent. I'm sorry, guys, but there's that emoji that looks like poop, and the thing is, I found out that's not poop. That's supposed to be ice cream. Who thought of that? Like, who said that was fine? Like,
Is that the one that's got a face on it and like little smelly lines coming off?
yeah,
the top?
that's supposed to be ice cream somehow. Then those,
How the hell is that ice cream?
Yeah, really,
That's that looks like a steaming pile of paper.
Sounds like somebody just trying to save face. Oh yeah, it's ice cream.
yeah, right. It's GIF, not GIF. And then I don't know. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Android M. Speaking of poop, no, I'm just kidding. It's got a little bit crazy. But yeah, we're back in our respective homes and studios. It's time to talk. We had our poll, and I'll let Grushy sort of kind of talk about our poll and see. It was like an overwhelming response, right, dude?
Yeah, basically, like 58% of everyone wanted to talk about Android M. So, even though we know nothing about it, but speculation is good.
Of course. Well, let's start with this. Let's keep it light for this beginning part, and just so you listeners know and viewers on the YouTube version, we will talk about the LG G4 a little bit later. Nirav and I are the only ones who have LG G4s, so we'll be able to do that. And hopefully you guys have been able to see the review that I put out yesterday already, and hope you guys enjoyed that. But here's my first question, keeping it kind of light. I'll start with Feisty. What do you think M is going to stand for?
Oh, you had to start with that one, hey? I'm gonna go off the beaten path. Let's go with marmalade.
Marmalade? That's the first I've heard of that one. Marmalade.
Well, it's not exactly a candy, but it's sweet and it's unique. So here's hoping. I'm not putting any money on that, but here's hoping. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How about Joe?
I don't know what I really, really, really want it to be called Macarena.
Macarena.
Is that
Yeah, Android-
is that a sweet?
No, it's a dance move. Come on.
Exactly.
You,
No, I know
alive?
that.
You were
No,
alive in the 90s, right?
No, I do know that. The Macarena was my jam when I was growing up, but I just don't know if that would stick.
It wouldn't. That's a pipe dream that I have, because then, on stock versions of Android, when you turn it on, the boot screen can come on and you can hear, "Hey, Macarena," and then it would boot to the home screen. And I think that would be not only awesome, but hilarious. And that band, whoever did that song originally, would get some royalties for the first time in like 15 years.
And then collectively, we're gonna have so many broken phones across the world because I never restart my phone because I don't want to hear that freaking sound. Nirav, how about you, man?
I don't know. Okay, on a serious note, I think probably something like Marshmallow. But I would love Android McFlurry.
That would be awesome. Yes, I love it.
And then when you boot up or when you like press the build number like God knows how many times, it comes up with a picture of McFlurry. How cool would that be, man?
Now, here is the question. Is it an M&M McFlurry or is it the obviously superior Oreo McFlurry?
Oh, I was just about to say.
Oh, man.
Better question. If you take your Nexus device into McDonald's, do you get a free McFlurry?
So yes, we are the FDP now, and I was actually told by one of our bosses, good old Derek over there. He's like, I don't think we need to tell them that P stands for podcast. I think it's kind of implied already. Just call it the FDP, because if you look at our listing on Pocket Cast and everywhere else, I've changed it up already. It'll say Android Authority Podcast, but then the title of the podcast is FDP number whatever, and then the title, and then the actual subtitle. So technically we're the Android Authority podcast, but we just kind of like the term FDP, and we thought we would do we will put like a HTC of sorts and just be like, oh, it's the FDP. What does it stand for? Do you guys have any what does FDP stand for you guys?
You don't want to know. You don't want to know all of the ridiculous, horrible, and typically vulgar things that I have associated with F, and then especially with DP.
Oh, man.
All right. I made my one bad joke for the day. You guys can talk now.
I don't think we really thought of too much when we did it. It's just that I at least I noticed, and I'm sure Grushy did too, that on social media, because Grushy, you're more on Google Plus than Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I noticed on Twitter that hashtag FDP was really gaining traction. Everyone kind of liked that, it's distinctive.
Well, it just has a nice ring to it. I mean, who cares what it stands for?
Yeah, right? And that's the whole reason why we said word P stands for podcast. For the only time I've ever really said that was last week's show, which was... did you guys listen to last week's show, by the way?
The first 20 minutes or so, but I've had an insanely busy week, so I haven't really been listening to much of anything. I watched most
of it. I think I cut out somewhere in the middle, because...
Yeah, that was
kids and stuff. But
I love it when we go to events and I get to have people on. Like Nirav was supposed to be a guest on the show back when we went to China together, and then all of a sudden Nirav is here and he's with us in Android Authority. So it doesn't even really.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we were all just sort of in that hotel lobby, just sort of drinking up a bit, and then I remember you nudged me. You're all like, "What about that podcast, man?" And I was like, we're not really recording.
I'm a bit drunk.
But yeah, I love it when we get guests for these events, and obviously last week was the LG G4 launch. I had Flo from Greenbuy, Dom Esposito, and Michael Fisher on. That was a hell of a show. I put the clips at the beginning of the YouTube version. We were on a boat, and we got off the rails so much more than I think any of us ever have, like our usual panel here on the show. But that was the only time I've ever really said P stands for podcast. And then, well, we saw the YouTube comments, and then